Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Get a Life Podcast, Kunai. I am your host. I'm finally a host. I am your host, Joe, and I am accompanied by my good friend Bish
Hey, what's up?
and my even better friend Kevin.
Hey guys, and thanks, Joe. He kids,
Yeah,
obviously.
I'm not the only one who can make jokes here. And today we are covering Yamada Kun and the Seven Witches. But before we say anything else, Kevin,
Alright, so as usual, for you new folks, Get a Life Podcast Kunai is a monthly anime discussion podcast under the Get a Life group. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the discussion on the podcast, we can't avoid spoilers, right? We can't. So if you haven't seen Yamada Kun yet, go watch it and then come back and listen to the show, alright? For the shows that are based off of an existing piece of work, whether it's a manga, light novel, or some other media form, we aren't covering the source material for those. We're just covering the show. We can be found on Stitcher, iTunes Store, and Google Play. If you'd like to recommend us a show to make for an episode of Kunai, send us your suggestion on Twitter at GALPKunai or by email at galp.pea@gmail.com. We only ask that you suggest shows that have, at most, 30 episodes. Also, if you like the stuff we do here, you can support us by going to lootcrate.com/kunai and checking them out. Joe?
Alright, so for those of you who don't know about this show, basically Yamada Kun and the Seven Witches, also known as Yamada Kun to 7 no Majo, is a supernatural romantic comedy based on the popular manga written and illustrated by Miki Yoshikawa. The anime, which is produced by Leading Films and directed by Seiki Takuno, ran during the spring 2014 season for a total of 12 episodes. The story follows Ryu Yamada, a problem child attending Suzaku Private High School, and his faithful encounter with an honor student who turns out to be a witch. And after suddenly switching bodies with each other in a serious accident, they soon realize that something is amiss at this private academy. And with that, let's go to our first impressions. So, who would like to start?
Yeah, I would like to start. In terms of the first impressions, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know about this anime at all. Yeah, and until kind of Joe kind of told me about it, so I watched it. I kind of, from the first couple of minutes, I kind of felt that there was a sort of Freaky Friday feeling going on. You know, when the characters swap bodies, I thought, okay, is this the anime? It's just going to be them swapping bodies and living their lives, but it was a lot more complex than that, and it kind of drew me in. I wanted to know why did they switch bodies and why they have powers. That's very intriguing to me. So to me, I didn't go into this thinking it would be supernatural. I thought witches, but I expected more like Harry Potter type thing. Especially, you know how the anime's cover and the OP have them wearing witches hats and stuff.
Hats.
Yeah, so I assumed that going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, so just like Bish, I actually came into this blind. The only thing that I knew beforehand about Yamada Kun was purely through stuff on my TL, so just fan art and stuff. I came into it blind, all right, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. And from the first 5 minutes, you're probably like, "Oh yeah, 5 minutes. That's enough to judge. That's not enough to judge an anime, right?" But what I do, a habit of mine at least, when I first watch an anime, is that I spend the first few minutes looking at, how it's presented. I try to identify cliches or tropes, right? And for the first 5 minutes of the show, I was like, all right, let's see. So the protag, who is he, Yamada Kun, he's this delinquent. It's kind of a trope, 'cause it reminds me of Hagana. It's kind of this trope that reoccurs in many anime series, right? And after he falls onto this random girl that he meets, right? Shiraishi. That's super convenient, and they kiss, right? But then something unexpected happens, and that's when they switch bodies. I'm just like, wait, what the fuck happened, right? So from this point on, you're suddenly introduced to the premise, right? And you're just as confused as Yamada Kun, because you don't know what the fuck just happened. You don't know why it happened. It just happened, right? So that was really interesting, right? Although I do admit that, it's not something completely original. As you know, Camphor, it's another anime where that has a similar premise. Though in Camphor, the protagonist, if I'm not mistaken, he actually turns into a girl. So it's a bit different, but kind of the same at the same time, right? Yeah, exactly. So the premise, it got me intrigued, right? It's not completely original, but it was enough to get me hooked, right? And to come to think of it, it's perfect for a harem anime, right? Which I would argue this is very much. And in the first episode, after that first 5 minutes of skepticism, where I was like, is this just going to be a cliche-ridden anime? I have to admit that I was pleasantly surprised because of the way the comedy is handled, right? And the interactions between Yamada Kun and Shiraishi, both in their normal bodies and after they switch bodies, really reminds me of Haganai, right? And other comedy anime that I quite like. So, by the first episode, I was already laughing out loud, and that's a good thing. So, right off the bat, I have to say that the first episode impressed me. Joe?
Well, first I want to ask, would you say you joined the House of Yamada?
Yeah, he's kind of like Yu Narukami, but he's not that much of a pimp,
What?
He's almost there, but not quite.
All right.
Because he's like the god tier pimp, right? Like, he has girls left and right. Yamada, he has a lot of people trying to go for him, but it's clear that he has his eyes for Shiraishi, right? So he's not really wandering, unlike you.
Okay, so I actually had some exposure to the manga before I watched the show. I read the first couple chapters or so. Like, this is really good. And for some reason, maybe it's because of school or some other events, but I can't really remember. I just ended up putting the manga on hiatus, and then around that time, I heard that an anime was being made. So I'm like, it should be much easier to experience the story that way. And so I gave it a watch, and then I was just like, I was instantly hooked. Well, I kind of knew what was gonna happen at the beginning, but then when I started seeing the new content, the content I didn't see in the manga, it just felt really nice watching it. Like, it was really funny. Like, it was very, like, I thought it was just gonna be them switching bodies, like kind of like what you said, Kevin, and what you said, Bish. But they ended up making something much more complex and something deeper. It's like they didn't just make this huge plot about them switching bodies and doing these different things. They actually had more witches with powers, and they had a deeper story behind it, like why do these girls get these powers, and it's like they look into their past and stuff like that. It went together pretty well, in my opinion.
To comment on that, actually, now that you bring it up, Joe and Bish, I agree but disagree at the same time, and I'll tell you why. It's kind of weird, but so it's true that it's not just Yamada and Shiraishi constantly switching back and forth through bodies, right? It's not that repetitive, but at the same time, it also is kind of repetitive the way the plot is structured, at least. And this is past the first few episodes, mind you.
Well, I mean, I will admit that they do use it like a lot more than I expected them to, but I kind of like how they had those little unique spins. Like, they used this body switching mechanic to like incorporate another story plot line. So that's kind of
I kind of agree with you, Joe. Like, I liked how they used it in a very smart way to kind of help the story move along. Like, it wasn't, oh, let's just switch bodies because we can. Like, they used it to their advantage, and I think it worked.
Yeah. What I meant was, like, between Yamada and Shiraishi and Yamada and the other witches, I do find that their interactions are interesting, right? It's not always the same thing that's rehashed over and over. What I mean is the way the plot is structured, right? So, episode 1, he meets Shiraishi, right? First witch. Second episode, he meets another character. And after that episode, basically, I describe the format of the show as one episode, one witch, up until like episode, I think, 10. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's nice to know what's going to happen, but it does get kind of repetitive once you get to like the fifth witch, right? Because
right.
But
you gotta admit though,
thing.
The unique spin they had with the 6th and 7th was actually very nice to see.
That I completely agree with.
Actually,
the last few episodes, it blew me out of the water, right? Because it was not like that same like formula, if you will, that they used for much of the middle of the show.
Right, like those last couple episodes were like, it was just me sitting in front of my TV and like, I want to know what happens next. Like, you've got me really intrigued.
And I'm actually really glad. Wait, Joe, did you watch this simcast or did you watch it? You binge it?
I watched the simulcast for a time, but then I had school stuff to do, so I had to wait until sometime later to finish it.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I wasn't watching the simcast because I would not be able to handle fucking waiting the last like 3 episodes, right?
Well,
Because the
granted,
last
like I didn't actually watch it like one episode a week. I was behind at times, so like some
ah
days I'd watch like 3 episodes. So something like that. Speaking of other episodes, speaking of different kinds of episodes, I want to move on to the favorite episodes and moments. Maybe like what you guys think was your favorite moments, what you guys think your favorite episode was, like what you liked the most in each episode, stuff like that. So who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll go again. In terms of my favorite episodes and moments, I really liked the kind of first couple of episodes when you get the main four people that you see majority of the time in anime. You know, you get Ito-chan, and you get, I can't remember the rest of their names, but you get the protag, and then you get the female protag as well. What I liked about that, it kind of felt very Haganai. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, these
Oh,
characters
you mean like how
are
they were in
coming
the
together.
room when they were just playing video games?
Yeah, it kind of felt like that because it was like you're bringing these people together through the powers, through the witches, and they have a common goal. Their goal is to, find all of the witches. They don't know why, but they're just doing it as kind of like a friendship building exercise in a way. That's how I felt it. So I liked those episodes. In terms of moments that I really liked, I don't know. I really liked the fight scenes. I really do like the fights. They're just too good.
In a supernatural romantic comedy, my favorite part was the fight. Or
Yeah,
the fights.
there's something about it. It's because you don't expect it. That's one thing. It's just like, whoa, this wasn't expected. I kind of like
Maybe it was
this.
just suddenly
It's all-
gets violent in like in a very soft moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's
Wait,
also
wait,
the
what
fact
do you-
that the atmosphere.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you say fight,
Yeah.
are you referring to like the sudden moments of violence, or like just like fist fights and stuff?
Yeah, I'm referring to the moments of violence, the punching, the kicking, etc. Because we hear that Yamada is a delinquent, quote unquote,
Right.
and we don't really
Yeah,
get
he's
to
like-
see
he's
that
like,
until
quote-unquote.
he starts punching people up, and the music that goes on is like that kind of heavy metal kind of Dynasty Warriors music gets me pumped. I'm like, fuck yeah! So I really enjoyed that.
I think the funny part about those fights as well is that he doesn't always fight, because for those who didn't know, it's Yamada that does like 90% of the fighting, right? But the thing is, he doesn't always fight in his own body. He'd switch with other people, right? So like, and I think in the first like 3 episodes, he switches with Shiraishi, fights in that body, and then switches with the Ito, fights in that body as well, and he's just kicking ass left and right, right? But as
Right.
different people.
Well, apparently, like when you switch bodies, your strength switches with it.
Mm.
Because if you remember that fight, remember when Ito was supposed to meet with those 3 guys to to pay up for the fake artifact she got? Yeah, it's like you see Ito and Yamada's body just laying on the ground dead, and then you see Yamada and Ito's body just beating the crap out of everyone.
Yeah, she was like, "Fuck! I thought I'd beat them up because I'm in Yamada's body, right?" And he's like, "That's not how it works. Damn it!
It isn't about strength. You need spirit.
It's about your skills,
It,
MLG skills."
One thing that I kind of found kind of confusing when I first saw that, I was like, okay, this is kind of a supernatural show. They can get away with saying, oh, it's magic. That's why, the strength kind of moved from person to person as they switched. I just didn't. I didn't like.
Well, I
that.
think the joke's like what I said a few seconds ago. Like he was saying, it isn't about strength; it's also about spirit.
That's true, but when you think about it logically, it's like that shouldn't have happened. They should have at least explained that a bit more.
And I kind of just threw
think-
logic out the window. That's it.
True, but I understand. I understand why they could say that, because obviously it's a supernatural show. They can just say, "Oh, magic." That's the reasoning behind it. But I think to me, that's kind of like a poor reason. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like writing a story and saying, "Oh, guys, it was all a dream." Do you know what I mean? It's kind of that kind of moment that I get from that. It just
That's
didn't seem like a
understandable.
good enough reason for me.
Yeah,
but
even
you
in a
can't, I can't do
supernatural
anything
show.
about it because technically it's a good reason.
Yeah.
So
Any other moments that come to mind? Bish?
Um,
Or
No, not really. That's all I had to say about my favorite moments.
all right, so I actually do want to say my favorite moments because there's something I really want to talk about. It's actually I don't really have favorite moments. I have my favorite episode. It's episode 8. titled "You're So Annoying." It's the episode when we see Takigawa for the first time. And as you guys know, she has the ability to it's implied that she has the ability to see into the past, but in reality, she has the ability to see traumatic pasts. And so like it wasn't really until like the second half of the episode when I started to feel really bad for her and like the three students that she was trying to help. It's like he started out really rude, and then it's like once they started talking, like once she gave Yamada her power, like when he started dreaming about the traumatic event she had, like you just see how much pain she's going through, and you kind of just can't help but feel bad for her because it's like she's fighting so that these three students aren't left alone and that they aren't like feeling any more pain. And then like around the end when he ends up getting into that fist fight with one of the students, so like it was Ren Asano, I think his name was. He ends up punching him all of a sudden and claiming that he's trying to hurt Takagawa in some way. And then Yamada just drops some hope bullets, like some truth bullets there. And he's just like, you know what, like if you guys want to make Takagawa feel better, then you guys should stop acting like this.
Yeah, like I I completely agree with what you just said, Joe. Like at the beginning, I was like, you know what, this little girl, she's kind of a fucking bitch. All right, I'm not gonna lie. She like the one word I'd use to describe her behavior, and I think you'd agree with me here, that she's a brat. Okay, she acts so freaking bratty and like fucking uptight. You know, like holier than thou. She has this really bad attitude going on for like the majority of the episode, right? I wouldn't even say it's half the episode. That's it from the majority. And I didn't really start feeling bad for her until, you know, the very end when you learn her relationship with these three students and why she does what she does, right? She doesn't want to, get the club kicked out or, expelled from the school because, she feels like it. She's doing it because she wants to help these three other students, right? And literally in my notes, I'm like, this episode, it hurts so bad, but it hurts so good. It's one of those those feely moments.
No, like it felt really good, and like it kind of goes back to Fish's point about sphere moments being the moments of violence. It's like when Yamada, like he ended up getting punched, then Yamada got so pissed at him about how basically Ren was trying to defend Takigawa for the wrong reason, and so he ended up kicking him like straight in the face and knocked him onto the ground. That just felt like I got out of my seat and I was just like, yeah. I was like, you show them, man. So yeah, those are basically my favorite moments. Kevin?
Yeah. So I obviously, if you can already tell, episode 8 is also one of my favorite moments. Other than that, like I said, episode 10 onwards, basically the last arc, where they mix things up and it's no longer just one episode, one witch, and they mix things up and Yamada has to, work and try to get everyone's memories back. I really like that because it's a nice twist on things. You don't know what to expect, even though you know that he's going to succeed in the end, right? Because this isn't Game of Thrones. He's going to succeed in the end, but you're like, how is he going to do it, right? Who's he going to connect with? Just how is he going to get Shiraishi to remember him, right? So the way that the plot works and the way the characters interact with each other is a lot different compared to the rest of the anime, so I really like that. Other than that, episode 6, I think, deserves a mention, just because it's kind of like a swimsuit episode, alright? And it was partially a swimsuit episode. Was the summer school. Yeah. And that, it's not like, it doesn't quite touch or feels like episode 8, or it doesn't get any, brownie points for, quote unquote innovating like the last few episodes from episode 10 onwards, but I just liked it simply because it was funny, right? Because there are two moments in that episode in particular that come to mind, and it's when he comes back in the room, right, and they're fucking playing a Jenga game, right? Itu and I think it's Itu and the other guy, right? They're playing a Jenga game, right? And there's that epic no moment, right? Because the entire thing comes crashing down.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just something about over the top reactions that kind of tickle my funny bone. And there's also that moment, when he gets telepathy, right? Because that's the power of the witch, right? Telepathy.
Oh my god,
and
I'm talking about
right there. Yeah, and he's just like, oppai, Oppai. Oppai. He's just fucking saying that while he's doing the test. I died. I was like, you know what?
Something.
That's Joe right there. That's
you
a
know
Joe
what?
moment.
That's me. Like that's me every single day. It's like if you see me in like my college classes, or like if you just see me walking around campus, like I'm just while I'm writing down my notes.
What is
I'm
Joe
just, like,
thinking of right now?
It's like while I'm
Oppai.
writing my notes, just like
Oppai.
Oppai. But yeah. I actually also want to mention with the telepathy. I was like I really liked how Otsuka had Atsuka had that shy personality on the outside, and on the inside she's like she's totally aggressive. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Although I have to take the opposite stance. I mean, I don't mind it, but I find it's kind of. I've seen that before, you know, because I don't know if either Bish or you have seen or heard of Rosario to Vampire. Have you heard of it? Okay, because Mocha, who is one of the main characters, she's exactly like that, right? She has like this split personality, whereas when she has her Rosario on, she's nice and kind and sweet. When she takes it off, she's all like, imposing and big and stuff, right? So it's like, I'm not putting it against this character. It's just, I've seen it before, and even the way they handled it, right? I didn't find it particularly funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was more like it was less about like it being interesting to me. It was more like taking me back by surprise. It's like I saw it and then like she's so shy on the outside. I thought she'd be shy on the inside. But on the inside, she's actually she's very like demanding, very aggressive. So I'm like, that like it's just something I didn't see coming. Is all. I think maybe it's because I haven't seen it much before, but that's the situation for me. All right. Actually, like now that we're talking about all these different parts of the story, I think it's about time we move to our story segment where we talk about the story overall. Like, what do you guys think of the story overall? And like, yeah.
Could I start?
Sure.
Because mine. All right. So this is related to once again the pacing, the way the plot is organized, right? So Bish mentioned earlier that the way the characters were introduced reminded him of Haganai, right? And I completely agree there because. If I remember correctly, in Haganai, not everyone is introduced at once, right? It's not like, the first episode, they're all in the clubhouse and they're all friends and everything's good and, merry. No, just like in Haganai, and I guess in many other anime of this genre, the main characters are introduced bit by bit, right? You don't get like the full cast of all of the characters until near the end, actually. But I do think that, even though they introduce characters gradually and not everyone is there from day one, they do a very good job of creating this sense of togetherness within the main cast, right? By episode 2, you're introduced to Itu, and you already have this chemistry that's starting to form between the main characters. And that really carries through the entire anime, right? You don't feel that there's a missing person in the group at any point in my opinion.
Like the Supernatural Studies Club just felt very much like your second home. You know what I mean? It's kind of like every time they'd meet up there, it's kind of like they're always having a good time. They're always smiling, and they're always somehow talking about yakisoba bread.
Yeah. So the point is, they don't waste any time in getting you introduced to the core characters, right? So that's really good because I don't want to mention Kisniver, but I'm going to mention Kisniver. It's that on the flip side, Kisniver has its entire cast at the beginning. But the interactions between those characters, I find, or rather shallow, right? They're not quite the same. You don't really feel for them. Whereas in this case, you don't have the entire cast at the beginning, but it makes up for it with the meaningful interactions that these characters have with each other.
The character development in Yamada Kun was very, how do I describe it? It was very, like, it's a traditional type of progression.
Yeah, it's very run of the mill. You see this all the time for
and
anime,
it works.
Right?
It works in a lot of times.
It does work, but I kind of have to play the devil's advocate once more and be like, I do find that, like, I'd say 3/4 of the way through, there were some problems with character development. Okay, because for the characters that were introduced at first, like Ito and the first few witches.
Or are you talking about how like maybe some had more time than there were other people who had less time?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because the last few witches, except Takigawa, I think she's kind of an exception. But like Otsuka, Leonora, even though she's not a witch, she's a character that's introduced later on. Those witches and those characters that introduced later on in the season, they don't get much screen time, right? Those witches, they get introduced and they're featured in the episode that they're in, right? When they're introduced. But after that, they kind of just disappear for a bit. Especially Otsuka, the one that, has telepathy and it's really shy. She appears in her episode, and then she just kind of disappears until she's needed in the finale, so...
Well, I mean, they
I don't
appeared
know.
like a couple times in like the episode. It's just that they didn't show her. They only showed her for like a few seconds. No, no, I'm saying I completely agree with you. Like, I totally agree that they should have spent more time with the witches. It's one of my few complaints about the show is that the pacing was just very quick. It's like they didn't a lot of time the development was really good. Like, for example, the beginning onward until like maybe like the middle, and then like after that I kind of picked up in like the late like the end game, as like to call it. It's like it just could have been much better. Like I wanted to see more of like Atsuga. I wanted to see more of Sarushima, the girl, the witch who can predict the future.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that if I were to, rate the quarters, if you will, I'd say that very strong start, kind of went down in the second quarter. Third quarter, it got really weak because, these new witches were being thrown in kind of last minute, in my opinion, and they didn't get much time to be featured either, right? So they're kind of there. You didn't get to know them quite as well as the characters that are introduced earlier on. But then the last few episodes, I think were absolutely amazing, right? And I think they did a great job with the way they handled it.
Yeah, like the whole like arc with them with the seventh, like the final witch being the most dangerous one. Like when what was her name? When Leona Miyamura meet the what's his name? I forget his first name. It was
I just call him Miyamura, and I think
I'll just call
him that as well.
I'll just call him Miyamura, and like his sister Leona. It's like she warned Yamada straight up, like she's very dangerous and like you're gonna be in danger. And it's like it just like if put the suspense like inside me. It's like what's going to happen to him? Like what is going to happen
Out of nowhere,
to his character?
fucking scissor,
Oh my god! It's like when Miyamura opens the door, scissors just cut his face. I think it's the first
just
time.
like fucking kunai style, just fucking scissor out of nowhere,
Yeah, like no, that was the
Yamada
first
steps in.
time I've actually seen blood in that show.
Yeah.
It's like you see that one like drop of blood hanging from his cheek, and that's about it.
And he's just like, what the fuck?
Well, and then you see
2 inches to the right, and that would have been over.
and then you see Yamada and Shiraishi's body just get locked inside her room, and she's just getting destroyed with scissors. Now that was oh my god.
Speaking of abilities, though, Joe and Bish, I want you guys to comment on this because we kind of talked about it earlier, but we didn't really explore it at length. So, what you guys think about the way that the abilities were used? Because, like I said, in the later half of the episode, the witches that are introduced later do not get much screen time, right? But how do you think that their abilities are used?
For the time
the story.
For the time they had, it's like I do say it was well executed, but it wasn't enough time. Like I only saw for one episode, and it was just done. Like there's so much potential in these abilities, and like I feel like they did use some of its potential, but they didn't use all of it. You know what I mean? It's like I wish I could have seen more telepathy, or like I could have. Like I can't say the same thing about Sarushima because her future power plays a big role in two or three full episodes. But everywhere else, it's like I just wish, like even with Takegawa, like she was one of my favorite. She had one of my favorite abilities in the show, and she could have used it much more than kind of like that one story arc. You know what I mean? It's like those are kind of my thoughts on the abilities. Bish.
In terms of the abilities, I would have to say that yes, I agree with you, Joe. In terms that if there was more times, they could probably flesh out the abilities a bit more, instead of just relying on the switch, like the body swap. But at the same time, we have to remember that this is an anime adaptation, and if they go too far from the kind of source material, it might end up like the live action version, which actually released before this, and so, to be honest, I do agree that there are some things that I think can be solved with different abilities. For example, like a lot of telepathy. Like, that's a very powerful thing to have, a very powerful power, and I think it was only to be used on like cheating on a test. That seems like a waste of an ability. Honestly, I'm just saying that. The same with the kind of with the kind of future, seeing into the future. That's a really awesome ability. We've seen it happen a lot more.
Yeah,
I think
we've
that's
seen it
like
happen
the
a lot
second
more,
most
which
used
is why.
ability, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, it's why I can't really complain about it, because it had like a bigger role than
But
most of the
I honestly
abilities.
think that. But to be honest, I think that all abilities should have had more screen time. Other than the traumatic one, I think that's in terms of that episode. I think it's great that they kept it short, because there's not much you can work with in terms of seeing traumatic people's pasts in form of dreams. There's not much you can work
I guess
with
like
there.
the
But
only thing I would have wanted out of that was like to make it a two-parter, so that I can have more time to see the pasts of like everyone.
oh
But
yeah,
I get,
that would have
but I
been good.
guess
But
like,
in terms of using that power again, I don't think
but like
it's
for what
worth
they,
it.
but for what they
I also
did a good job with it. Yeah, continue.
I also think that I wanted to see more of the invisibility powers being used. I wanted Yamada to use them. I just wanted to see Yamada using them. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. But yeah, that's all I have to say in regards to the powers and how they work with the story.
Right. And Bish, you didn't actually say your impressions, like what you think of the story overall. Like, what are your opinions on that?
In terms of the story overall, I think it reminds me a lot of kind of Monster of the Week shows. Like, oh yeah, who's that Pokemon? We're going to catch this Pokemon this week and this Pokemon the next week. It kind of felt like that. It also why it reminds me of World God Only Knows. Because effectively, that anime is about, finding a girl, falling in love with that girl, and releasing demons from her. That's effectively what the anime is about, and each episode is a different girl, effectively. That anime can go on and work in that format because, it just can. If you watch the anime, you'll understand. But this one doesn't quite work that way, and it did kind of felt wrong when they were kind of running out of witches, effectively, to do that kind of one witch per episode type thing. So I have to admit, the pacing wasn't the best, and I think if they gave it a lot more time, it could have been better. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like a 24 episode anime. I think that would be doing it a disservice, because you'll be dragging out too many things. But yeah, I think as a story, it kind of made me feel nostalgic in a way, because of a world God only knows. But other than that, it wasn't something that was like, oh wow, this is kind of amazing. It was an intriguing idea, and I think they pulled it off, but I think it could have been better in how they executed it.
Okay. Didn't actually say my opinions on the story. So overall, like I'd say the story was like, I do agree with you guys. It wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't. It was amusing. It wasn't exactly something I've seen before. It's like I really like the concept of like, like this private high school has these witches, and it's like it didn't really. What I liked about it is that it didn't fit at all. Like, let me explain. It's like you have this high school where there are people focusing on studies, like always focused on like doing all this work. And you have like the common delinquents, and suddenly witches. It's like kind of just like it's something so unexpected for a place of that nature,
Yeah,
and yet like they made it work somehow. And then
it does.
hmm?
It really does. Yeah, I agree with you, because it's like I said, it's kind of out of the blue, right? And it's a thing that mixes things up, right? Because you've got this typical school setting, and all of a sudden you have these powers that are introduced, right? And it's interesting to see
Right.
how these
It's a very
powers.
subtle introduction, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's kind of like these girls suddenly have these witch powers, and then suddenly they can manipulate everything around them. It's really cool, and I did really enjoy the interactions with like all with like all the different characters and like I said, like I kind of agree with Bish when he said it's kind of like Haganai, where when everyone's in the Supernatural Studies Club, it kind of feels like a second home. They kind of just laugh and chat, do all these different things, and so like overall, it was a fun ride. That's basically what I'm saying.
Okay, so now that we've got story moments out of the way, let's move on to characters. And I know Kevin has been dying for characters.
No, a correction, character, no plural. One specifically. But we'll get onto that later,
Oh.
you know. That's
Yeah,
later.
no, oh my god, Kevin's ready. Kevin's got his bullet ready. Alright, so character design. What do you guys think of character design?
Oh, I find that the characters, they look pretty unique, right? But it's nothing. I guess I have to comment on the art style as well with this. They're nice, they're unique, but it's nothing new. It's nothing that blows me out of the water. That I'll remember. The characters, they look pretty normal in my opinion. Nothing too much to say on that.
I actually do want to connect this to art style as well. The art style really, well, I don't know if maybe it's because I've also read the manga, but am I the only person who thinks the art style reminds me a lot of Fairy Tail?
Yes, completely agree with you, especially with the female protag. She reminds me of
It's
characters
like
from Fairy Tail.
when I see the character designs, I just can't help but think of all the character designs in Fairy Tail. It's like it's very. That's not a bad thing at all. Like I love Fairy Tail's design. Like and like how they chose the design for this, the character design, the art style for this show is nice as well. And also like the different character designs, like with what's her name? Oh my god, I'm just blanking today. Otsuka. Like I really I liked like the huge glasses and like her green hair, and like with Takigawa with her weird hairstyle, like it's kind of pointing out and then it kind of pointed down in her forehead. It's like stuff like that. And with Sayonji, when she had the umbrella and she had the orange hair, and like she just looked very she just looked very cute. It's like all the different designs, they just worked.
I really want to comment on the character design. I think the character design there's a lot of similar looking characters, especially with her name's Asuka. With her, she reminded me of Nikki from, I don't want to say this because people will know that I've been playing this game, but Honey Pop. I'm sorry. You know the girl that plays in the arcades in Honey Pop? That's her. That's basically her. Big glasses, the hair, the way that she looks and the way that she's quite shy, it's the same sort of personality as well. So when I saw that, I was like, dude, Honey Pop, man, this is it. It is. And I think if you've played Honey Pop, you'll know what I'm talking about. I also think that...
Rule 34, man. Rule 34. But yeah,
Rule 34. But I think Sayonji reminds me a lot of the character from Kill la Kill, the one with the other, spoiler alert, the one with the other blade. It reminds me a lot of that. I don't know why. Also kind of reminds me of Nico from Kiznaiva as well. She has that kind of vibe to her in a way, because she's kind of ditzy and whatnot. I also the character design, especially with characters with glasses, especially school president, that kind of stuff, reminded me of Manglobe's anime Wild God Only Knows, because they know how to do that kind of glare in terms of that kind of when they zoom in on the glasses and you get that glare and you see the eye for about a second. Manglobe knows how to do that really well, and I think also this studio knows how to do it really well, so I've noticed that on characters.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like when they kind of push their glasses up and then you kind of have you have the shine.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I can't feel, but like everyone who does an anime is a dick, because I think of Kabuto from fucking Naruto. Every time he does that, you're like, fuck you, man. You're such a dick, right?
No. Like here's the thing. Like a lot of characters I've seen that have done that have been dicks.
I think it's like an inside joke in the industry. Who knows?
But it's a cool thing.
Or like
I'm
either
not
that,
gonna
or
deny
it's kind of supposed to represent how wise they are.
Maybe. And yeah, other than that, I think the characters seemed very I wouldn't say generically designed. Like some of them seemed kind of generic, like Aito and I can't even remember the other characters, but with them they seem very oddly designed. Also, the fact that each girl had a different hair color, I was like, okay, you're just making them obvious that this is a witch. She has a different hair color from everyone else. Everyone else in the anime, of course, has like brown hair or black hair. And everyone else gets like pink and green and blue and all sorts. Same sort of thing with Yamada Kun. It's like he has blue hair, and they tend to give I don't know how to explain it.
There's also Oshio, who has like gray and black, and glasses.
I'd like to make a counterpoint though. Like, I get that, yeah, you do kind of make the witches kind of obvious by making them have different hair colors because they stick out, right? But I think that's also kind of the point, right? I think that you can apply that to a lot of anime. Going back to Kisnaiver here, because it's the most recent example. The main characters, like we just said in that episode, they're really unique, right? They looked really cool and they had really like eye-popping styles. And if you compare that to, say, the just the people in the backdrop, the random citizens of the city, in that anime too, they're pretty generic. And I think it's the same case here. I don't think it's something that's limited to Yamada necessarily. It's just a way. It's a design decision that's taken by the artists at Studio Leiden.
I think there's some characters that look exactly the same though. One being I really forgot his name, but the characters with the grey hair. They look really similar to me.
You mean like Miyamura, Ushio?
Yeah, it's like you slapped glasses on Ushio, and then you get Miyamura. That's how it felt with me. I think they could have kind of changed how they looked in terms of their physical appearance as opposed to just their facial appearances and their hair colors, because they've done it. They've shown us in this anime that there are varied character styles, and it's kind of evident in those girls that bullied. I forgot her name.
Shiraishi.
Yeah, the girls that bullied Shiraishi. One of them is kind of like a more stocky appearance, and other one's taller, and they can do it in terms of body types as well. But I don't know why they didn't do that with the actual main cast as opposed to just the background characters.
Once again, though, I think that you said it yourself earlier in this episode, Bish. It's practicality versus staying faithful to the original work, right? Because this is an anime that is based off of a manga, right? So I think that
right.
It's
I think we should take that into consideration as well.
So,
like with the manga, you don't really have like the colors standing out.
Exactly, and like we saw in what was that anime about making anime? Anyways, in that we saw that
Shirobako.
Yeah, Shirobako.
How could you forget Shirobako?
The name was on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, we saw in that anime, right, that there is this unwritten code. You have to respect the author of the original work, right? Because
oh right, it was in the second core one. That's like we gotta make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they have control over that, right? So yes, you do want to make your anime special, right? You don't want it to be generic, but at the same time, you have to respect the design decisions that were taken by the original creator, right? Because at the end of the day, you're just making an adaptation of their work.
Very true. Now that we're on the topic of like all these different characters and stuff, I think it's time we talked about our favorite and least favorite characters. It's like, what do you guys like, Kevin, Biz? Like, what do you guys think were your favorite and least favorite characters?
All right, least favorite, I'm not too sure. I'll get back on that later. But favorite character, I think, would be Takigawa. All right, and the reason being, it's just I can sympathize with her, right? It's just that episode 8, I think, is probably the episode. It's the most feely episode in the anime. All right.
Oh my god, man! I was ready to cry.
Yeah, seriously, I was too. Right. It really touches you, right? And it's notable because at the beginning, if you're anything like Joe and I, you're like, wow, this girl, she's a bitch, right? Why is she acting like a brat? But by the end of the episode, you come to feel for her and you understand why she does what she does, and you're like, wow, this girl who was acting like a brat, like a bitch, who thinks nothing.
It's kind of like a parent. It's kind of like a parent taking care of their children. It's like they're really aggressive, but they're doing it for the best of them. Like they just don't want them to go into any trouble.
It's just her capacity for sympathy with others, the fact that she uses her abilities to help others, right? Even though it causes pain for her, right? Being surrounded by painful memories all the time, she she's able to reach out to these random 3 students, right? That she doesn't really need to help, but she reaches out to them and she tries to be friends with them, right? Because she knows what they've been through, right? And they stick together. They're kind of like this little squad, if you will. So it's touching to see this sort of connection between these characters and see how this one girl is capable of so much sympathy, And I think for that reason alone, she deserves mad props and respect, right? So that's why she's my favorite character. It's this capacity for sympathy that Takigawa has, and just how you learn how much she cares about others that really touches you. And that's the reason why I think that she's my favorite character. How about you, Joe?
What about your least favorite character?
Least favorite character. I wouldn't say that I particularly hate any character in here, but I don't know.
Just like your least favorite character by comparison.
I'd say that like Leonora or Otsuka, they're not bad necessarily, they're just not really noteworthy, right? Because like I said, they don't really show up all that much, right? So they could be interesting characters, but we never know because they don't get much screen time and they don't do a whole lot. They're just kind of there to advance the plot, right? They're like plot devices. So I can't say much about them.
Right, yeah, I didn't see much of Asuka. And I wish I could have seen her more, but she was more like the person who wanted to kick somebody when they were doing something they shouldn't have. You know what I mean? Yeah, so Bish, what were your favorite and least favorite characters?
Oh, this is very interesting. I'll start with my least favorite character, because there's not much to say on him. It's Tsubaki. The guy that was frying the tempura. The reason I don't like him is because, he's just there for like one episode. He gets his story in a way, we learn more about him, that he likes to fry some tempura when he's depressed. And I don't know. I find it very... I can't relate to him as a character. I don't care for him, really. I just felt that he was there as a plot device, and he joins the club, but you don't really see him doing anything else. It's just like he's a comic relief, and I really don't like that because there are other characters that can do comedy in a much better way. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to agree with you there. Like, I'd say that was my least favorite character too, because it's like he had his whole plot, he had his whole like episode, and which wasn't really that interesting to. Well, like his character wasn't really that interesting to begin with. Although it was in like the whole like episode where they had to change the future, which I really enjoyed. But I really hated how he was like he's just very bland in the end. He just kind of joined the club and he was kind of just there. He didn't really do anything to benefit the story.
He was as thin as aluminum foil, all right? He was really flat as a character. I think the defining trait of that character is just, tempura. That's it. He's just, I think he's that one character, that you typically see in this genre of anime, romantic comedies, and he's just there to make jokes, right? And he's a punching bag for jokes. So
yeah, I gotta admit though, his scenes had one of the best quotes in the show, which is just anything but the tempura.
No, I think that what you meant to say is "Oppai" is the best quote in the show.
Oh, that brings me on to my favorite character, and it is none other than Miyamura. Because when we're introduced to Miyamura, he's like really calm, and he's just like, oh, you have to try this out, and then, he's really willing to try out the kissing to test if it works. I think that's very nice. I like that.
No, look, what I love about him, actually, I think you can agree with me here, is that he's just very subtle with the stuff is with going out of character.
Yeah, and I love the thing I like is that he's one of those characters that can easily just break character like at any time, especially with the Oppai joke. That was hilarious. And the fact that he's every time that Yamada switches bodies with Shiraishi, he's always like, oh, let me help you and let me help you change your clothes and let me fondle your breasts. That's hilarious to me because it's like, okay, is he like doing it as a joke? Is he serious? Or maybe he likes Yamada Kun
because he doesn't
being
show any
inside
expression when he does it either. That's the thing.
It's very odd because he looks like he's serious, but at the same time it's like you're like, is he joking? Is he not? And the thing is, he's constantly flirting with Yamada. Like, this is something I've noticed, even when he's not under a spell. Like, it's just kind of hilarious, and I think I like that. It's unexpected, and it lightens up the mood certain times in the anime. Yeah, that's why Miyamura is my favorite character. I also like the name Miyamura. It just comes off the tongue quite easily, honestly.
I think he's like the bro character in this anime. You know, he's kind of always there, no matter
No,
what.
you know his name is Toranosuke, so he could be one of the Broskes. He'd be part of the Broske team.
I think he
Bro,
is, because he is a
Just
bro,
saying.
right?
He's kind of bro. He's someone I would have as a wingman. You know what I mean? Even if he's just there, he's just a cool guy.
All right, so I'd have to, I'd have to say my favorite character is actually Yamada, because like I really liked his growth from being like this person who didn't really care about school to somebody who like knew all these people and like got to know people better. Because if you look at his past, it's really sad. It's like why he ended up being a delinquent. It's because he just wanted to fit in and he just couldn't. And then he ended up being betrayed and abandoned, so like he just had nobody to talk with, and he ended up being branded as somebody who was just rude. So like he didn't really ask for the life he had before like meeting with the Supernatural Studies Club and stuff.
I must admit, I was quite skeptical about him at first. Like I said, when I first watched it, during the first 5 minutes, I was like, uh-oh. Is he going to be this, cliche delinquent guy? And I'm really glad that he didn't turn out to be cliche. That really, there are some aspects of his personality that are kind of tropey, but I do like his outspoken nature, right? Like, he gets into fights often, but, he's really outspoken. He will fight for what he believes in, and, he's not going to take your shit, right? He's one of those guys. He's going to say what he wants to say, and he's not going to take anyone's shit at all. And, I guess I just gravitate towards these pro tags that are very confident about themselves, right? Because that's something that I look up to, right? It's a trait that I admire.
Right. I kind of like that whole like overarching redemption. It's a really nice thing I like seeing in different kinds of stories. And my least favorite, I kind of agree with Bish. It was what was his name again? Sumaki. Like, was it pronounced Sumaki?
Yeah, it's Tsubaki.
Tsubaki? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's like he was kind of just there. Like even the smaller characters had more time than him, and they were much more interesting than him. To be honest, it's like he was kind of just there to just make expressions. So that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to say. And now, Kevin.
Oh,
best girls.
Is it time already? Ah.
Yep, it's that time.
Good
it's
to
like
have
Kevin's looking at his watch, and it's
time
like
for a best girl debate. All right. Should I start or should I be last? What you guys think?
I think we should save the best for last.
All right. Although I do think that you guys already know what I'm going to say, but let's start with someone else. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I think because I don't really have much to say on best girl. Like I wasn't watching this anime to be like, oh, best girl is this character. I was watching it mainly for the story. I don't think the characters really deserve the title of best girl, but I think one female character that's kind of gone way beyond for me in terms of best girl is Aito. The reason I say that is because she's just hilarious. She has the comedy. I like funny girls. She also has that kind of Chie hairstyle going on. So I like the bob haircut. So
it's because she looks like Chie. You can just say
no,
that.
not because she looks like Chie, and also because she's just dumb and funny. Like for when she swapped with Yamada, and the first thing she does is make like finishing moves. I thought that was fucking hilarious. I was dying. There's too much
God,
going on.
I remember that. She just went the hallway, and then she was like.
And the fact that she's kind of, I don't know, like people think she's a liar and she's always spreading things, and she's also weird. I like weird characters. So, because of all of that, she is indeed best girl. I also like how they animate her in certain sequences, like how they do the chibi animations and those ones where they do like the different emotions. I like that, and it happens to her a lot. Same with Miyamura, so you can understand why I like both of those characters, but I would say Ito is best girl, 100%.
All right, so Kevin, are you gonna go last, or do you want me to start?
Oh, I just want to comment on Bish's best girl. It's shit. No, just kidding. I completely agree with you, Bish, and I don't know if you will agree with me here, but I think that the reason that you like Ito, and I think a lot of people can like Ito, is because she's so damn relatable to us, right? Because, or otakus, right? We watch anime, we play games, but unfortunately...
Otakus?
Pardon?
We're otakus.
Yeah, brotakus. And unfortunately,
We're weebs. Filthy weebs.
weebs.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, Kevin.
but just as Bish just pointed out, unfortunately, in the West anyway, and actually in Japan as well, people who are really into this sort of thing, are kind of looked down upon, right? You're kind of dismissed as, antisocial, or you're super weird if you watch anime, right? And Ito, you can relate to her because she has that same obsession, but with supernatural stuff, right? With aliens and all that. And that's so clear in the second episode, right? Where she shows them all, like, her collection of stuff, which obviously was fake, right? But she's so passionate about it, right? And that's something you can relate to. And secondly, on a darker tone, I guess, she's kind of alone, right? Because everyone thinks that she lies and stuff, and she's kind of shunned. And I guess we can relate to that as well as a community, because, we're kind of viewed like that by everyone else, because it's, anime and manga, it's not like gaming, right? It's not quite as mainstream, or it is mainstream, but it's not as accepted as, say, being a movie buff or a game buff, So that's why I think that she's so relatable and so likable.
She's like your neighborhood friend.
For me, I think the character that should have been like that should have been Otsuka, because she's the president of the anime and manga club. Like, she should have been that character for us to relate to in this way, and they could have used her for that. But they
kind of just mentioned it. They didn't really mention it again.
Yeah, they didn't really mention it. I think they could have went down that route, and that would have been perfect, and then she would have been best girl for me. But Ito has it. Yeah, it would have made.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so for my best girl, it was a very tough fight. They were all very, very strong candidates, and especially Takagawa. Unfortunately, I had to narrow down to Urara. Mic drop.
So why is Shirashi? Because to me it seems like, oh, you just picked the one that the anime wants you to pick. You know what I mean? Like, because you said you have multiple, so then you said it was a hard decision. So I wanted to know what was your.
No, that was more of a joke. My real tough decision was between Shiraishi and Takigawa, because I really liked Takigawa's story, like her backstory. But with Shiraishi, I really liked her development, and I really liked how she kind of interacted with Yamada. Because she was very antisocial. She only focused on books, and she didn't really she didn't plan to for example, go to college or talk with make friends. So it's I liked how she kind of, because of Yamada and the whole body switching fiasco, she was able to become somebody she could be proud of.
Admittedly, though, what you say is completely true, Joe, but at the same time, it's kind of yeah, her interactions with Yamada are meaningful, and there are plenty of them, but at the same time, I think it's because, the author is setting them up to be like that, right? Yamada and Shiraishi, the ship, it's kind of, that the author wants it to happen.
I'll be completely honest, I can't really choose a best girl. She would just kind of be, she kind of just barely wins. Because, for example, I have, more, I really like
Joe again being greedy, man. He wants all the girls. God damn it, Joe.
This voice chat isn't called Joe's Harem for nothing. But yeah, those are basically my choices. So just to get out of the way, who would you ship?
Oh wait. I think we're forgetting something, guys.
What?
Wow, Bish, that's cold.
Oh, we're forgetting your best girl.
God
no
damn
one
it,
really
I've never
cares about
noticed.
you. We know this.
You know what? I am so sorry, Kevin. I didn't totally intentionally nonchalantly skip your best girl.
See, guys, this is what I have to deal with all the time.
I love you, Kevin.
Although I think I've made it pretty obvious, and I didn't expect this person to be my best girl, but Odagiri. It just happened, right? Don't ask. I just find that this is kind of my sin. It's kind of
No, let me stop you there.
What?
You know who she looks like?
Who?
She looks like that one from the Gashikashi. I forgot her name. Shit.
That's exactly why I thought. That's exactly how I predicted it would be Kevin's girl.
She is her. That's what she reminds me of. And it's just it's that girl from the Gashikashi. Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying this is my sin, it's my guilty pleasure, is because this is she's kind of like Yozora, all right? But in my opinion,
Oh,
she's better.
kind of.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Bish. I'm
Oh
sorry,
my
Bish.
God.
But
Well,
Yozora is, like,
wait.
is
So,
trash.
quick question. So, how come in Hagana you didn't say, "Oh, you know what, Yozora was my best girl"? How come you didn't say that?
Because there was Senna, so there was no
No.
choice. There was
So
no choice
wait,
to be made.
So you're saying
Bish.
if Senna wasn't there, you would have picked Yozora?
Yeah. I don't hate Yozora. I'm not Tyson. I'm not gonna shit on Yozora, but she's just not. Oh, any character shit compared to Senna, right? I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. All right.
I
Don't
just
mean
feel
to-
really disappointed that you saw any trace of Yozora inside Otagiri.
Well, they are.
No,
bitches,
she does remind me
first
of-
all.
she
they
reminds
are
me of-
bitches.
yeah.
Like if you remember at the introduction, Nene, she was trying to blackmail Yamada, right? So that's like a dick move right off the bat, right?
That's a Yozora move.
That's a total that's a complete Yozora move, right? But the reason I think that she's best girl is just her development, right? And she does kind of act bitchy after her introduction. That's true. But as the show progresses, you kind of see her evolve, right? And I think the moment that makes this most clear is I think it's episode 11, all right, where Shiraishi doesn't have her memories back yet, right? And the president of the club or of the school, he offers her a deal, right? He corners her and offers her a deal. So it's like, okay, either you can cooperate with me and try to ruin Yamada's plan, so he doesn't get everyone's memories back, and you'll have a chance to go with Yamada, right? Because she's into him, and this is to her advantage because Shiraishi doesn't have her memories back yet, right? But she refuses this, right? She knows that it'd be in her best interests, right? She has no reason to help Yamada, help Shiraishi get her memories back, but she does it anyway, right? So that just shows how much she's changed, right? She went from like fucking blackmailing him to sacrificing her own interests and just putting one for the team,
Yeah. No, I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah.
And I also want to state that the thing that makes Otagiri different from Yozora is that she can actually charm people.
Oh God!
Low blow.
Do you smell that? Something's burning. I think the bitch's dreams.
What I like about Nene is that, as you mentioned, she does have a lot of character development. Mainly the fact that towards the end of the anime, and I think the reason that she makes that choice is because for once in her life, she's kind of made friends and she's charmed people in a way without using her abilities. So this is kind of, she's making true friendships. And I think that's why she goes to, I forgot his name, Ushio, or I can't even pronounce his name properly.
Ushio,
but
yeah.
Ushio. Yeah.
yeah, she kisses him and she says, "You're free." And he stays there because, he's always loved her. So it's the same sort of thing here. Like, she's realized that, she doesn't need her powers to gain friends. And I think you see her grow to that point, as you mentioned. So I'll agree with you there. But I wouldn't agree about best girl, just saying.
And also, she's tsundere, which is a plus. And
You just like tsunderes.
I have to say that, blushing Nene is blessed Nene. I'm just saying.
For some reason, like before we even like prepared to watch this show for this recording, I kind of predicted that this would be Kevin's best girl. Just saying.
Yeah, I probably thought so as well.
I'm a simple man. I see short hair.
Oh, by the way,
okay.
what did you think of that scene? When they went into the future, and then one scene was that you saw her panties, and then the and when they changed the future, you saw her bra. I thought that was hilarious. But it's a typical tsundere thing.
I think what happened in that scene was that like, there were two separate scenes. There was one where
there's two separate scenes, but it's in the same episode. One is when he initially sees the future, and the other one is the alternate future that was created.
Both possibilities happen. Those are two different futures. It's like the first future is him like predicting that her panties will be shown, and then and only Yamada gets slapped. And then and at the end they showed a scene where like her shirt is like kind of like it's buttoned out, like her, and then she ends up slapping Yamada himself.
Ironically, I did not like those two things because I just found that first of all, fan service I think that is a bit kind of nonsensical. Yeah, I was there for comedy, but at the same time,
it was there for fan service. I think.
Yeah, I was there for fan service and sort of comedic value.
Well, I mean, I want to say it was like 60% fan service, 20% like showing the future power, and
20%. Oh, Joe, you sweet summer child. But The reason I didn't like that is because I was like, oh no, are they just going to turn Nene into a trope? Because I do think that for like a good, chunk
No, I think
of
they
the
were
season,
like
she was
showing
kind
that
of
fan
tropey.
service. I think they were kind of showing that fan service for the sake of making a point. Like I don't think they were trying to like set up a trope for her.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't continue because up until that point, like, if I recall correctly, like during the mid part of the season, she was kind of, there to be the tsundere tropey girl, and I was like, oh no, is she just going to be that character? That's a punching bag, and I'm glad that she didn't end that way. But yeah, that's why I didn't like that moment that much. I didn't mind it, but like, I wasn't super enthused about it either.
Alright, so before we go to the audio and visual component, I need to say this right now.
Yeah.
What were the ships? You need to tell me. What ships
What is
sailed?
OTP with the one true pairing? Well, Bish stated that he has no chips. For me, like, let's be honest here. I'll be surprised if Joe says anything different. But in this anime, there's not. You don't really have much of a choice. At least if you consider Yamada Kun, right? You can't really ship him with anyone but Shiraishi, right? And that's because the author kind of intends that. He intends it to be that way. Or she intends it to be that way.
I was ready to ship him with Miyamura.
Oh my god, yes. That was the ship. That was the one ship I wanted to say. Miyamura and Yamada. Only because their weird relationship together. It's just very funny.
Yes.
And I just want to see
I
them.
feel like it's like I would definitely ship Yamada and Shiraishi, but like I think the other candidate, the other strong candidate was Yamada and Miyamura. And let's be honest, like their relationship was flawless.
When he towards the end, when he kind of charmed him, and he was like, "Oh, let's instead of going to my house, let's go to somewhere else private."
Yeah.
I was dying. I was like, "I need this ship to happen." And I'm pretty sure people on Tumblr have written fan fictions and send me these fan fictions so I can read them because I want this to happen.
Like,
oh my god.
Rule 34, no exceptions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask Tyson to write some for us.
Tyson only reads them because he's still, even though he's not on the podcast anymore, he's still director of fanfics, and you can go and send him your fanfics.
He has no obligation to read them, by the way. He just reads them for pleasure now.
He's just for fun.
But actually, something just came into mind, guys. Because body switching is such an important thing in this anime. What do you think of Shiraishi and Yamada, but like with them swapped? Because I think that there's nothing more fun, like nothing funnier than fucking Yamada-kun, but in Shiraishi's body. Because
Shiraishi's body, yes,
yes,
really
I
funny.
agree with you.
Oh
Just because the voice is just so hilarious, and it's like,
and just the attitude, right? Because it's so contrasting with how she usually is. Because usually she's super calm and like
no,
reasonable, right?
I think one of my favorite moments, like in those situations, was like it was fan service, but it was really funny how it was like fan service while Yamada was in Shiraishi's body. It's like when he's like accidentally inside a bath, or when he's like when he's just being really perverted and he's just trying to check himself out.
Dude, that moment with when he's in Shiraishi's body and he's with Nene.
Oh my god.
Yes.
you guys are filthy perverts. But my favorite moment was the one where
I thought we talked about this. You know what's in my mind every day? Oppai.
That's his motto.
Oppai is love. Oppai is life.
All right, well, Bish, continue what you're gonna say.
But what I was gonna say is that I actually prefer Yamada as Shirashi as opposed to Shirashi as Shirashi. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
I actually prefer that.
In my notes, I was like, during the first episodes, I was like, all right, you know what? My best girl might just be Yamada, but in
Shiraishi's body.
Yeah,
that's
hilarious.
Acceptable. There isn't something wrong. There's something wrong to say.
I also think that, I don't know, because it provides a lot of opportunities. You learn more about Shiraishi when Yamada is Shiraishi's body. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very ironic.
It's quite nice. I also, one of my favorite scenes was when he was in Shiraishi's body. It was in the beach, and then he loses the bikini, and then Miyamura, the legend that he is like, "Oh, let me help you find it." It's just hilarious. Yeah. That's why I love Miyamura. It's full circle. Yeah.
All right. So now that we got all those out of the way, I think we should talk about something I really enjoyed in the show: the audio and visual components.
Speaking of which,
so like let's start with the. Oh, you want to say some, Kevin?
Yeah, because sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's just that I think it's a perfect time to talk about the voice acting, actually, because we were talking about, them switching bodies, right? And one of the things I thought while watching this anime is that, like, holy fuck, the voice actors must have had a fucking blast doing this anime, because you think about it, like, they get to do different personalities, right? So, like, Shiraishi, voice actor, would switch from her normal personality to, like, super fucking upbeat and, like, intense when she's voicing Yamada, right, in Shiraishi's body.
Yeah, no, I really gotta commend the voice actors for kind of like changing their voices slightly in those transitions. It's like they were able to blend it. Like, you kind of, like, you knew that, like, there was this character in this body.
Yeah, I think that they did an excellent job, especially when the characters switch bodies. I think that the voice actors did a great job. It is not only was it good, in terms of audio, but it was also very entertaining, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of it, as you said, Joe, because you said it was kind of like a seamless kind of transition between that. I think they record those separately, those lines. I'm not quite sure, but I would assume so. But
whatever goes in editing, they did a good job with it.
Oh, yeah, of course. One thing I wanted to mention about Kevin's point was that, yes, they are very talented voice actors to be doing all these different voices, but I also think, it must have been a lot of strain on them. Do you know what I mean? To effectively, they're voicing, especially, I don't know how to explain it, because when each character swaps body, and there's a lot of times where, Miyamura might be in someone else's body and all this kind of stuff. So they might have to do effectively 4 or 5 characters, as the same character. And it is very difficult because you're playing other people's characters as well as your own. Do you see what I mean? So it's very straining on them as well.
I agree, because
I would say.
This reminds me of this panel I attended at Anime North, right, about voice acting. And one thing people may not realize is that, in this anime, when the voice actors, when they switch characters, and it's not just them, modifying their voice a bit. It's a lot more than that, because when you voice a different character, not only do you have to modify your voice, you also have to modify, the way you think, right? Because every character thinks differently, right? And this affects, the way they would laugh, or, the way they breathe even. So these tiny little things that make up the way a voice actress or a voice actor voices a character. And we have to commend them on the amount of work that they do.
They're not professionals for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I think, just like Bish said, they're not voicing one character. They're effectively voicing, 3 or 4 characters at once, right? Because they have to, modify their voice, but they also, adopt different mindsets for every character that they voice, right? So you have to commend them on that, because that's not something that you'd be expected to do in a normal job, right? When you sign up for a role as a voice actor or voice actress, it's usually one role, right?
Yeah, because you can't exactly, even with magic, you can't change voices. Like, you gotta kind of because since it's still part of the body, they still need to kind of adapt to that. So yeah, well, voice acting. Well, anything else you guys would like to say about voice acting?
Personally, not much. I think that is, like I said, it was pretty good overall.
All right. So next, I'd really like to talk about the opening and ending. So, to start, before we talk about that, I want to state the opening name and ending name. So the opening name is Kuchizuke Diamond by Weaver, and the ending name is called Candy Magic by Mimi Meme Mimi. And
what a name! That's a really cool name. I would love to be called Mimi Meme Mimi.
So, what'd you guys think of the opening and ending?
Right. Should we start with the opening? Because I have quite a bit to say about that. All right, and I think it's interesting because my opinion of it kind of changed with time. All right, at first I was like, all right, you know what, this is a nice opening, all right, but it's kind of typical what I'd expect. Opening. Yeah, it's kind of what I'd expect of any show in this genre. All right, but with time, especially during the second half of the season, I found myself getting more attached to it. I started liking it more, and eventually during the last 3 episodes, during that mini arc, I just did not skip the opening, right? Because it was really nice. And I think that not only is the music good, but the animation is really good as well. I think that
Oh, the animation is my favorite part of that opening. It's like very smooth. It's very like it's how do I describe it? It's kind of like you can see the animation kind of moving a bit. Like yeah.
One thing I have to say about it is that I really love the music, and I usually like to skip openings. I didn't skip this once. The one thing I found confusing initially when I watched it was obviously you see the witch's hat being used, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. It kind of gave me a different impression of the anime before I actually kind of watched the anime in full. Do you see what I mean?
I think it was more symbolic.
It's symbolic, yeah, I know, but watching this first time, especially the first time watching the intro, I don't know, it's like misleading in a way. Like, I thought it was gonna go down that kind of Harry Potter route of wizards and stuff, but I can see why they did it, because they got witches in the name. I understand that, but I felt it was kind of confusing at first, but towards the end I didn't really matter about it. But in terms of the music and the art style and all that kind of stuff, I really agree with you guys. It's top notch.
in terms of not only the animation, I think the art style. I probably need someone to confirm this, but if I remember correctly, the art for the opening, the colors are a bit lighter than in the actual anime. If I'm not mistaken.
It's very flat. Like it's not like popping out in
Yeah.
front of you. It's kind of like each color.
Yeah, and I really like that because it gives us this feel like as if the opening was kind of painted, in a watercolor.
It was like painted, hand drawn,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like it worked. It worked very well.
How about
I agree with you with everything, Kevin.
How about the ending, guys?
The ending, actually, here's the thing. I didn't hate it, but it's something that just kind of bothered me after a while. It's like it just sounded very repetitive. Like it wasn't like I commend the artist, like she did a fantastic job, but like it's not really the kind of thing I'd want to listen to every time. It's like it's not something I really focused on when I played the ending. I didn't skip it, but I didn't like pay attention to it either.
I have to agree with you there. I mean, opening and endings they're different beasts, and I have to say that unlike the opening, which kind of grew on me with time, it wasn't really the case with the ending. I don't think it was bad. It was just nothing noteworthy. And with the opening, I find that I tend to be a bit more generous with the opening because you're bound to watch it a lot more than the ending, right? Because it's at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah,
right?
so it's the song that kind of like hypes you up.
Exactly. Whereas the ending, the only time where I really stay and listen to the ending is if like it immediately hooks you, and that's something that's hard to do, right? Because not all songs hook you in from the start. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case with Yamada Kun. Like again, it's not bad, but it's not good enough. Like I wouldn't download this, for example.
In terms of the ending, I do have to agree with you there, Kevin. Like, it's not something I would download, and to be honest, I skipped pretty much all the endings apart from one. It doesn't get you hooked, and I think sometimes it is kind of inappropriate. You want that, especially when it's like a dramatic moment and it ends on a cliffhanger. You really want the ending to reflect what's going on in the anime.
Well, I mean,
especially
either
the
that or
last
they gotta
couple of
just skip
minutes.
the ending entirely.
But it's just like the ending seemed too kind of fluffy for me. I don't think that's the right adjective to use, but it kind of felt like that, and it just felt inappropriate, especially when there was dramatic scenes just before that, maybe 5 minutes before that.
Yeah, like for the opening, it can be fluffy, right? Because that's fine, because that matches the tone of the anime, right? And like Joe says, it hypes you up, it prepares you, it puts you in the mental state to get ready to watch. But I think what you said is really true, right? It's kind of like inappropriate. It's kind of out of place, especially in the last few episodes where things get very dramatic and very intense, right? Where he doesn't know whether he's going to be able to get everyone's memories back, right? And it's only cuts to this this really calm and happy song, so it doesn't really fit with the mood at the end.
Yeah, like I agree with you. In that sense. Anything else you guys would like to say? All right, and finally the OST. Like, what do you guys think of the sound design or the effects?
I would have to say I liked the soundtrack that was going on in the background, especially when they were calculating things. There was like this electronic music going on, kind of reminded me of Back End Test, how they had the do 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 It reminded me of that, of Bar Contest. And then you had that kind of Dynasty Warriors heavy metal kind of thing going on for the fight scenes, which really got me hyped up. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, Yamada win, man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I love that.
I gotta say, I love the OST for this. Like, the heavy metal was what sold it for me. It's like every time to get into a serious moment, or like, it was very silly, very violent. It's like it's like, you know what, you want the antagonist to just get beaten.
This is kind of funny, because Joe, earlier you were like, what, Bish, your favorite moments in a romantic comedy are the fight scenes, right? And now you're like, oh yeah, my favorite music in this romantic comedy is the heavy metal. It's not something that you'd expect.
Well, I mean,
but
no, it's like, I still, like, it didn't, like I said, I didn't really expect him to, like, to kind of say something like that as his favorite moment. But, like, I do agree that they were pretty amusing to see. So yeah, the music was a nice touch, and like, the music was fitting for each moment. It's like, there wasn't something that just felt out of place, in my opinion. It's like, if it was a sad moment, you'd have this like kind of sad music, or like this kind of calm music. But like, when it's very intense, it's like it kind of speeds up, or like it gets, or you have the heavy metal, like I said before.
I agree with you there. For the OST of Yamada Kun, I don't know. I find that it gets the job done. Right? I'll give it that much. I'll say I'll say the same thing that I said for Haganai's OST, and that, it gets the job done. It's kind of generic, yes, but it does what it needs to do. Would I, listen to this over and over? Not really. Like, perhaps the metal music during the fight scenes, because that was quite funny and it really matched the mood. But other than that, I found that the music is okay. Right? It wasn't tear-inducing or anything, but it wasn't bad either, right?
Yeah, fair enough. And anything else? Like, anything else you maybe didn't like or didn't like about the sounds, or like the music, the opening, ending? Something else you want to say?
Not really. I think that in terms of sound effects and stuff, it's pretty standard. Nothing that I noted in particular.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and like, speaking of style, like we talked about it before, like the visual component of it, like the animation, the art style, like, it's like, anything else you guys want to say about that?
Not really, but I think that, like we said before, it's pretty standard, and it's not bad, not great, but at the same time, like we said, there's that mini issue with the fact that certain characters looked a bit too similar. Other than that, I don't think there's not anything that we haven't said already.
One thing that I have to say, it's a really quick point, is that the fight scenes are really well animated, and I think it's because this studio has good kind of experience with fight scenes, because they've done the Arslan anime. Probably, I think Arslan was probably after this, but I'm not sure. But you can tell that they know how to do a lot of violent kind of fights, and the way that you have like that wind kind of protruding from like the punches and stuff like that. It was very kind of Dragon Ball Z, One Punch Man kind of esque. I like that. I really did. So that's all I have to say in terms of the art style and animation.
See. All right, and now it kind of looks like we're closing up soon. So like, let's talk about our final thoughts. Like, maybe gripes and grumbles, or yeah, final thoughts, like pros, cons, gripes and grumbles, such.
Yeah, in terms of gripes and grumbles, I don't really have much. One being that it's poorly paced. And
right, that is one of the things I can agree with.
It's not. I don't really want it to be a longer anime, to be honest, because I think there's two ways of doing it. They could have done it a longer anime and kind of included a second season's worth of content within it.
You mean like a second core?
Yeah, like a second core. Or they could have just kind of made this at least maybe 15 episodes. I think an extra 2 episodes really would have helped, especially when we're introduced to new characters and kind of fleshing out those plot points, because I felt that it kind of hurt the character development, especially on some characters.
But I guess like it's more like a budget thing, where like you can kind of either do 20
you know what I think it
episodes.
Is, and I'll be real with you, Yamada Kun is a very popular kind of manga series, and they did a live action and it didn't do too well. And
right.
I think that might
to be honest,
hurt
a
the
lot
reputation
of
of the animation.
don't do really well.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they weren't going to take risks, especially if the live action didn't do so well. They might have thought that people weren't going to watch it, etc. So
Yeah, I mean, for what they did, it wasn't too bad. It's just I wish the pacing was better.
Yeah, it's not horrible pacing. In terms of my Greps and Grumbles, I have to agree with Bish. Basically, he got it spot on. My two Greps and Grumbles here are they go hand in hand with each other, really. One affects the other. That's pacing and character development, right? Mostly pacing, because character development, there wouldn't be a problem with character development, like I said many times, with these later characters having very little to no screen time and development because the way the thing is paced, right? There's just... I'm not bashing on this format, with this one witch, one episode thing, but because it's tried and true, it's been done before, right? It's not horrible, but unfortunately in this case, I do think that it does hurt some of the secondary characters. The main cast, I think, was strong, but some of the secondary characters, you don't really get to know them all that well, right? And perhaps you do get to know them in the manga, but within the 12 episodes, like Leonora and the characters in the end, the last two witches, the Amnesia Witch and the witch that can be invisible, you learn nearly nothing about them, right? And you don't have time to build any connections.
Well, I mean, with Saionji, I feel like she had a lot of development with those 3 or 4 episodes. Yeah, honestly,
they did what they could, but even then, I think that she would have benefited from more screen time. And like Bish said, this is an issue perhaps with length, although I don't want to go overkill on this, because I do think that, in past episodes, we've said this quite a lot, and I don't think that extending the length is always, the go-to solution for everything. 15 episodes would have helped, but another angle to look at this is that, especially if you look at Haganai, which is also a work that's based on, a written work, perhaps they just did not have enough material for, a second core, or,
No, I disagree with this. Because the anime goes on the manga goes and continues after, when they lose their powers. And there's actually a lot, if you look at the wiki, there's tons and tons of characters who actually are considered witches, and then you get introduction of male witches and stuff like that, and you get the introduction of all of these characters that happen past the end of the animation. So there is enough content to make a second season, or indeed a second core. I don't think a second core would have worked, but I think a second season would possibly be in the works. But would I want to see
now that we're talking about second seasons, I'd like to bring that to our next topic. Would you guys want to see a second season?
I'll continue from my point here. Like, I think a second season at the moment, it doesn't make sense. I think mainly for people who have read the manga and want to see this in an anime format, that would be awesome. But I think it's that if we haven't read the manga and we're just watching the anime, I think for me, the ending felt that there isn't going to be a second season. And if you haven't read the manga, you wouldn't have known that there is extra content, and you wouldn't have known that there are more characters. For me, I just read this now about the manga, so when I initially ended watching it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. They've lost their powers, that's the end of the story. They've lived happily ever after. Done.
For an anime, it's a good conclusion.
Yeah, it was a good conclusion, but in terms of second season, they can do a second season, but I felt that the anime has its closure, so I wouldn't want to see a second season on that.
Right, I agree. I don't know, I wish I would see more, though. I am curious about what they could do with more seasons.
I don't know whether I want a second season. If there is a second season, I'd definitely put it on my watch list, right? Sorry about that. I'm just waiting for the sound to clear up. Yeah, so if there is a second season, I'd definitely watch it. From what I've read, though, I did do a bit of searching online, as to whether or not there will be a second season. And the general consensus that I find is that, they'll probably wait for, the manga to continue with more material, right? And if it gets enough success and there's enough interest for a second season, it'll probably happen, right? That's how things work in the anime industry. If there's enough interest and there's potential for profit, it'll happen. If not, then it'll probably not
right
happen.
In the end, it's all about demand.
Yeah, sure, the anime industry, it's art, but first and foremost, before art, it is a business, all right? And businesses that don't make money don't last. So that's unfortunately that's how things are. And on this topic actually of second seasons, I know we don't talk about this often, but I was wondering if you haven't already, do you think that this anime adaptation, after having seen it, are you motivated to go check out the manga? Not read the entire thing, but at least check it out.
Yes. Well, I mean, I've read the manga first, so I can't really answer that, but I would want to continue it after watching what I saw.
I think for me, I'm not really an avid manga reader because I don't really have time to. I also don't like because with anime you kind of get the visual component, the audio, that kind of stuff. But I think it's a compelling story, and considering that I don't want to see a second season, I would pick up the manga roughly where the anime ended and just continue reading from there. Like, I wouldn't buy the manga from the beginning and then read that, and I would just continue from where it left off. And I want to see what happens to Yamada, without his powers and all these other characters, and especially Best Girl Aito. Just saying.
Yeah, personally, I think that the anime did quite a good job at selling the manga, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, the purpose of an anime adaptation is to promote the original work, right? And I think they did a great job of that here, with the voice acting, the comedic moments. I think that the anime or the manga was pretty well represented. And
I mean, if it gives me the feeling of like wanting to read the manga after watching it, then it's doing what it needs to do.
Exactly, and I think that the anime has done exactly that.
Yeah. So kind of like to wrap this up, on a scale of 1 to 10 yakisoba bread rolls, how would you rate this anime?
I'm not going to use your scale, Joe, because I don't conform to that. But I would say I would recommend this. I would recommend this to a friend. I think this is a really great anime, like for people who are just getting into anime, because it has all the great bits of what an anime should be. It's got comedy, it's got action, it's got the romance. It's also got just the it's got the supernatural element towards it, and it's got time travel as well, and it's got the powers lends itself for a lot of opportunities within anime, and it allows it to explore a lot of routes. So I think anyone who's new to anime, it's a great way of dipping your toe in the water, as they say. So I would really recommend this to someone who's just getting into anime.
Yes, it's very nice. It's very charming, very romantic, very funny.
Well, I would definitely recommend this to any fans of anyone who likes to watch rom-coms, right? Because this is, I think, a very solid example of that genre, and it reminds me a lot of Haganai, like I've said so many times, right? So if you're new to anime or just new to this genre, this would be a good place to start, right? Because it encompasses quite a lot, right? It has, like Bish said, lots of good comedic moments, action, and there's lots of potential to ship as well. So it's a great introduction to, it's a great introduction to the harem / rom-com genre.
Right. Any final thoughts?
No, that's it.
Oppai.
That's it. All right.
Oppai.
Oppai.
That's all, folks.
Yep.
Oppai.
Yep. And that was Yamada Kun. Yamada Kun, the Seven Witches.
Yeah, and the next episode of Get Live Podcast Kunai is a very interesting one because it's a fan suggestion. Someone sent us a suggestion via email. Very much thanks to them. We're not going to give them a shout out, of course, because they asked to remain anonymous. But it's basically Excel World. So Excel World is an anime written by it's an anime adaptation of a light novel written by the same person who wrote Sword Art Online, and it was released in the same year as Sword Art Online in terms of anime. So that might be interesting. Yeah, it's an anime that obviously has a lot of history with me, and I haven't quite finished it yet, so we'll see how it goes.
I've had my eye on it for a long time, so it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, well, it'll be really interesting. So that will be the next episode of Kunai. It's something new that we're doing at the moment, obviously, because we have a free anime slot. So we're dedicating those slots to your suggestions. So remember, if you guys have any suggestions, you can tweet at us at GALP kunai, and you can send us an email at galp.pea@gmail.com. Yeah.
And if you want to talk with us, directly, like if you loved us, you hated us, you want to kill us, you can tweet at us at our Twitter handles. So you guys want to say your Twitter handles to the lovely crowd?
Yeah, mine is at Get a Life Podcast as always.
Yep, mine's at the Tempest Phoenix. Phoenix spelled Phoenix because I'm too cool for grammar. And remember, do not forget the capitalization in front of each word, or I will not read your tweet. No, just kidding.
And mine is Kibo Gamer. Kibo as in hope in Japanese. To represent my never-ending love for the Danganronpa series. But yeah, that was Yamada Kun. I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, this is farewell.
So yeah, this is the end of the episode. Usually we have bloopers, but we haven't been doing that for the past couple of episodes. My apologies, I'm the one that's editing, so forgive me on that one. But we do have a special announcement, and what that is that Crunchyroll has effectively, they've sponsored the podcast, specifically Kunai. What that means is, any content going to change? No. It just means that you guys are going to get more awesomer content, if that's even a word, because obviously we're going to be supporting the legal streaming of anime, and hopefully you can as well by going on to www.crunchyroll.com/kunai for your 14-day free trial of premium Crunchyroll. And I believe Joe's going to tell you what you get in that free trial.
If you subscribe to Crunchyroll, you get access to, I think it's like over 2,500 anime titles, from like older classics like One Piece and Naruto to more recent editions like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and ReZero. Shows that I really enjoy, shows that I like JoJo is something I've waited every Friday for. Like, you have no idea how painful it is to just wait an entire week to find out what happens next. But yeah, like if you're a Crunchyroll subscriber, then you get all that, and it's all ad free.
Now, also, Crunchyroll Premium members get access to a manga library, which includes many, many titles. In fact, Yamada Kun, you're talking on this episode how we want a second season, right? But after listening to this episode, of course, if you want to check out Yamada Kun's manga, it's available on Crunchyroll, among many other titles, such as Fairy Tail, and Real Life even.
And Kizna as well.
And Kizna. And you can read these on the mobile app, so on your phone, the tablet, so on the way to work or school. So it's really great.
This is a lovely thing about Crunchyroll. If you're late for school and you got that toast in your mouth, running for the bus, you can be reading some manga, or you can be watching some shoujo anime on Crunchyroll. Not just anime, you can watch dramas as well. There's a lot of J dramas on, and I believe K dramas as well on Crunchyroll. I haven't been watching them, but obviously I'm a big fan of it. I'm hoping that there is a lot more that are being added to that. But there's a lot of anime on there. Toradora is on Crunchyroll as well. One of my favorite animes. Just saying. I think also this is a great opportunity for you guys, because if you want to kind of join in on our discussions, once we announce a different episode and that anime is on Crunchyroll, just go to crunchyroll.com/kunai and you can join in on the fun. That 2-week trial, you can marathon a bunch of shows and kind of keep up to date with what we are doing on Kunai, and talk to us on our Twitter page and be like, Bish, I think your waifu is not the best, but I agree with Kevin's waifu.
Just like Bish said, the best part is that, if you have Crunchyroll, or whether or not you have a subscription, since anime on Crunchyroll usually comes up, as soon as an hour after the simulcast in Japan, and we'll be tweeting on our accounts and on the Kunai account, right? So you can be keeping up with Crunchyroll and sharing your thoughts with friends and with us on Twitter.
That's enough about, explaining what Crunchyroll is. You guys should know by now. It's I think, to be honest, it's one of the biggest and best anime experiences out there. Everyone and their dog has Crunchyroll. It's just a great overall experience. I love using the app. I love, reading the manga at nighttime and stuff like that. I've recently gotten into manga because of the Crunchyroll service. In addition to that, I just want to extend a thank you to everyone at Crunchyroll, all the people that have been doing stuff behind the scenes to make this happen. Thank you also for having faith in us and having a belief in us that, and also being excited for us as well. So I'm really happy to see where this goes. And, thanks Crunchyroll. Yeah. So like I said, it won't change any of our content. It will just help us to produce better content for you guys as well. There you go. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and hope you guys have enjoyed this announcement as well. I know it was pretty sudden, but
it's a pretty big deal though.
It is a pretty big deal, and we're all excited about it. We just found out recently. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys excited?
Honestly, this is like a dream come true, and I think for the fans, what you guys should take away from all this is, it's like a fork in the road. This opens up many doors for the podcast, and we can bring all sorts of different content for you listeners, right? So thank you to everyone at Crunchyroll who made this possible, and also thank you to you fans, because without your support.
Yeah, the guys at Crunchyroll are pretty awesome, and I'm glad we'll be able to work with them. As their what would you call a person who's like a sponsee?
Are we effectively a sponsoree? I don't know what the word is. Crunchyroll, if you're listening, which you probably are, tell us what the right word is. What is the right word?
Kohai.
Kohai, yes. I think we're effectively Crunchyroll's kohais, and they are the senpais. Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool now. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't think we need to say any more than that. Keep up to date with our Twitter pages. As always, I'm not going to repeat them again because we've mentioned them like 5 million times. Also, keep up to date with Crunchyroll.